the quality of the artwork is appalling. This is very, very basic stuff, made by people who are not artists, people who I think are trying to cash in on a trend at the moment. And they seem to be people that have not been able to succeed within the art world.
That was Chris Clifford, the director of Art Gallery Private and Public, and this is the Bailiwick Express podcast. I am the arts editor, Elodie Rodoules. What do Jack Dorsey's first ever tweet, the Charlie Bit My Finger video, and Nyan Cat all have in common? They were all sold as NFTs, non-fungible tokens, probably best described as digital assets with no tangible form. While Chris says there might be an interesting proposition, he does not mince his words when discussing how NFTs have recently been used to sell digital art. Earlier this year, digital artwork from Beeple Crap sold for $69 million at a Christie's auction. As Chris says, that's when everyone went, "What is an NFT?" I asked him to answer that very question.
An NFT stands for non-fungible token, and it's a tradable digital ownership certificate representing the ownership of a unique asset, basically. It sits within a blockchain, which collects information together in groups or blocks, and it means that virtual art can become tradable. However, most NFT art is stored in the blockchain of the Ethereum cryptocurrency, and this has a massively heavy carbon footprint. And so, collectors, if you like, are encouraged to obtain their NFT art, if that's what they want to do, through a different cryptocurrency with a lower carbon footprint, or simply to avoid NFT art altogether.
You touched upon about the controversy around the environmental issues linked to NFTs. Could you tell a little bit more about that?
Well, anyone that wants to Google cryptocurrency and environmental damage will see that there's been a whole host of research reports done by eminent academics across the world. In order to run and produce Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, and to mine it as well, there are people that mine these currencies online. They require a huge amount of energy. These are warehouses full of servers that are burning vast amounts of electricity. And so there is an extremely environmentally damaging form of cultural behavior, if you like. The most interesting statistic I read on this recently was that cryptocurrencies and NFTs use annually the same amount of energy as Argentina. As a country. So if we can begin to understand that, then we can begin to understand that the issue of the environment, which is hugely important for everyone, it has gone off the radar a bit over the last year, 18 months because of COVID, but it will come back into view very sharply. This is something that runs contrary to current thinking, academic scholarship about how humans should behave in the future. How they can protect and conserve the planet, and what actions they should be taking to conserve what we have at the moment. So it's a controversial issue in that regard.
And is the art industry in general, the traditional one, more green than NFTs then?
Yes, I think the answer to that is probably yes. The traditional art world has been criticised at times in the past. Is more in relation to the big international art fairs, which have sprung up over the last 10 to 15 years in places like Basel, Art Basel Miami Beach, Art Basel Hong Kong, which is another franchise of it, Frieze Art Fair, which exists in London and New York. These are events where the major international art dealers from around the world will fly with a team of gallery staff and ship with them huge amounts of art in massive wooden packing cases. They'll go to these art fairs. These art fairs are sort of temporarily set up, if you like, for a week and 2 weeks in marquees, which are then taken down. But the carbon footprint from art dealers and obviously the art audience. There is a big international art market now, and people at the top end of that market will have private jets and private helicopters and all those kind of things. So there is a carbon footprint. There has been some criticism leveled against the top tier of the international art market for these type of events. When all the wooden packing cases arrive at, say, New York, they all get sort of thrown away. Nothing gets reused. So there are some issues around that people need to be very aware of. Obviously, there hasn't been any art fairs for 18 months. Gathering of huge numbers of people in public places has not been allowed legally. But I think all of that will get looked at some point in the future about how we do business. Is it necessary to have a big international art fair? All of it's kind of gone online nowadays. That does make it rather unwieldy and difficult to navigate. It's not fun in the same way as it was to going to a big art fair and bumping into friends and bumping into artists and looking at interesting things that you hadn't expected to see. The actual physical engagement with the artwork is still the most important thing.
Has there been any interest in Jersey about NFTs, and what advice did you give to those people when they asked, is it maybe a worthy investment?
I haven't had anybody ask me in Jersey whether it was interesting to buy an NFT. It's not to say that Jersey isn't a culturally sophisticated place, and it isn't to say that there aren't people here that are interested in cryptocurrencies. In fact, I think just a few doors down from where we're sitting now is the world's largest offshore cryptocurrency bank. And that's an interesting proposition for Jersey as an international finance centre. But people aren't asking for it. If they are looking at it, they won't be talking to me about it. They'll be going on to platforms like OpenSea, where you get millions and millions of digital images, all of which have a price, and you can buy them. And when you buy them, you get your NFT, your certificate of digital ownership. And so art dealers, in a way, are cut out of that equation. So it's not surprising that I haven't really been asked about it. I have been asked about it, but not should I make one or should I buy one or that sort of thing. There have been some people that have suggested it would be a good thing for the gallery to do. I personally don't think it would be.
Why?
Well, if you look at, and it's an aesthetic question to begin with, but if you look at the quality of the artworks on display, and you have to spend hours trawling through these websites, and I have done that exercise, the quality of the artwork is appalling. This is very, very basic stuff, made by people who are not artists, people who I think are trying to cash in on a trend at the moment. And they seem to be people that have not been able to succeed within the art world. They seem to be people who sit outside of conventional structures within society in which artists are encouraged to develop their ideas, their personality, their products. And the NFT makers of the moment have very little visual skills. If you look at the platforms like OpenSea, to give you they look like sort of Japanese anime, digital, pixelated cartoon characters of little dogs going for a poo whilst they're waving at you. It's childish beyond belief. The slightly more advanced stuff that you see feels like really bad graphic design from the 1980s. You'll see lots of stuff that looks like it's badly airbrushed. I had a look at one this morning before I got into this interview, and it was a really bad drawing of a Viking covered in tattoos standing on a surfboard. The surfboard was on the back of a unicorn. The unicorn was riding another surfboard on the top of a wave, which was crashing onto a beach filled with skeletons. It's just awful. And
I can't even picture that.
It's a tough thing to imagine, but it feels like sort of sci-fi fantasy art. And I think a lot of the people that are making this are techies. So they're young people who've maybe no interest in art. no interest in the history of art, no interest in art as a cultural manifestation of a society's values or beliefs. They're people that are sitting at home in their bedrooms making this stuff in the hope that they can get rich quick.
It sounds a lot like a trend. So is there a risk for any buyer who's jumping on it just now and buying like those NFT art that they might be out of pocket in a few years when they try and sell it and no one is interested anymore?
It's already dropped 70%. The market for NFTs has dropped 70% since March. So when there was that auction I mentioned earlier in New York with the Beeple Crap image, then the market has dropped for NFTs. Cryptocurrencies collapsed around about 2 months ago. They hit rock bottom as well. People lost millions, billions of pounds, and it's not crept back yet. People have invested in it. Elon Musk bought, I think it was $150 billion worth of Bitcoin around about 2 months ago. The energy used in the acquisition of the Bitcoin negated all of the carbon savings from every single car that Tesla has sold.
It's mad.
It is an insane thing to think about in terms of energy, and a man who pertains to have green credentials and the long-term future of the environment at the sort of core mission of his company would invest in such a cryptocurrency. So these are the issues that people need to be made aware of. Is it a good investment? No, it's a bubble. It's an artificial bubble that has been stoked at the front end to try and generate interest, and it feels to me like a Ponzi scheme. There doesn't seem to be any real value, and it's not backed up with anything. Now, if anyone wants to kind of get a handle on how you ascertain what value is within the art market and how it is agreed upon, there's a very, very straightforward strategy for this, or an explanation for this, and it starts as when you're a young person and you feel like you're a creative person and you're interested in art, and you make a decision to do art at school and to then go on to university. Now, if you go on to university, you study at art school, and you work really hard, and you read a lot, and you go to lots of things, and you develop your skills as an artist and as a person, when you get to graduate, you will probably get a first. And if you're lucky, and a lot of this is right time, right place, but you'll get picked up by a really good art dealer in London, in New York, in Beijing, Shanghai, wherever it might be. They will take you on. They will develop your career as an artist. They will invest a lot of money in you. You become a gallery artist. You become retained. And you start to exhibit your work. And they sell your work at a low price point to begin with. They tell the collectors that they believe in you. They tell the collectors that they think this work is interesting. But there's no financial risk for collectors at that stage. You're talking about stuff that's £1,000, £2,000, £3,000. In terms of the art market, it's minuscule. And then they nurture and develop that artist's career over 3 years, 5 years, and they push the prices up. And as the artist's work develops and it becomes more prominent, the art market buys into it in an academic sense. So you'll get critics will write good reviews about it, journalists will write about it, museum people will start to come and talk about it, and the work will be accessioned into big corporate collections, and then ultimately museums will acquire the work. This is a set formula. This has been the way of it for centuries, actually. Once the work has gone into a museum collection, it's called museum validation. People will often then, who own works already, maybe think that they will cash in on them. They'll sell them. Maybe they just have to sell them for whatever reason. And we have what's then called the secondary market. This is the auction records. And if we can see that an artist's secondary market auction records are increasing in value, their art becomes what's known as investment grade. So that's when I can say to my clients, we have art on the walls by an artist and it is investment grade. And that's often what I do with the gallery that I run in Jersey.
Okay. From what you're saying about the NFT, I understand that you don't really see them as an investment value just now, and you don't see it as an opportunity for Jersey finance industry.
Implicit in your question is this idea that NFTs were created for art, and there is no relationship between the creation of an NFT, which is a technical structure that sits online, and art. Some artists have used it to try and create an artificial market. There's a great difference. Now, there are things, if you read about it, for example, there's been some people recently saying that the legal and conveyancing sections that deal with property could be completely decimated by NFTs. The argument is that your property could be an NFT. So that property trading, the buying and selling of a house, could be conducted through blockchain, through NFTs, bought and sold. And of course, what does that really mean? What are you really buying? You're buying a digital certificate, a proof of ownership. But of course, the lawyers will say, well, there needs to be a survey done. We need to see if there's any damp in the room. We need to see if the building is structurally sound, if there's other issues with neighbours and things like this and boundaries. So it seems to me to be an interesting idea, but probably one not borne out by reality at this moment in time. I have to make it clear that I'm not against NFTs. It's just a piece of technology, and it creates opportunities, and it can create wealth, and it could create enormous opportunities within the financial services sector, and it might do in art. But at this stage, it doesn't stack up.
I think we discussed that before, but some people only see the investment value in a piece of art. Do you think that takes away some of the joy from art itself? When that happens, and obviously this is what's happening with NFTs and art as well, is that people only see the investment.
You know, I have people that collect art that work with me that are collectors that buy art at the very top end of the international art market. They won't mind paying £500,000, £1 million, £2 million, sometimes more for something. They buy it purely as an investment. It's disappointing when they do that. I mean, obviously, as a businessman, I'm part of the transaction. But when you see something very beautiful on a wall in a gallery at an art fair or wherever it might be, and you buy it on behalf of your client, and you know that it's going into a wooden packing case and it's going to be sent to Switzerland, and it will be put into a high security, tax-free storage facility for 3, 5, 10 years until it increases in such value that it gets brought back out onto the open market and sold at auction. It's mildly depressing for someone like me who likes art, who wants to look at art and wants other people to see really good art. There is a sadness in that, of course. But it's equally depressing looking at an NFT on a screen. You know, am I going to buy one? You know, realistically, having seen the quality of the artwork? No. And the idea that I would then have, even if I did, that the only way that I could really enjoy it would be by looking at it on my iPhone or on my laptop and go, hey, this is great. Doesn't fill me with any joy at all, because the great thing about art is looking at it up close and seeing what it's really like, having that emotional experience, that connection with it. And that's not there through a flat digital screen. It just doesn't feel the same.
Especially because you don't get any special perks by owning it. Everyone would have exactly the same access as you have to it. So you don't get anything else.
You don't get anything else. There have been some attempts, I think, quite recently to try and create NFT exhibitions. This is something where there is a physical artwork in a gallery space, and there is also a copy of it, which is an NFT. This to me feels very strange. What am I buying? If I walk in and then I buy an oil painting, and it's a beautiful oil painting of, say, the sea, and it's made by an artist who pertains to have green or environmental kind of concerns. They love the planet, they love nature, they paint landscapes and seascapes, and they celebrate the beauty of the natural environment. But then next to it, there is an option to buy it as an NFT as well. I would be calling out that artist and saying, are you not sure? Are you sure that you're wanting to do this because of the environmental potential damage that this product could cause? That's one thing. I think that's really important for artists to understand. Artists who say they have green credentials but then create NFTs, I think will be accused of hypocrisy. But then back to the issue of ownership. If I buy the painting and someone else buys the NFT of the painting, who owns what? And I can only see, that this is going to lead to problems in the future. And there have been several examples. I'm afraid I can't give you. You can Google this; they'll come up very quickly. I can't give you actual examples in the here and now, but there have been some cases where people have felt that the blockchain that they are in has provided them with the ownership, and it hasn't. So the technology has been at fault also. So there are some issues around that sort of send some hairs running, if you like, and give me some concerns.
More and more art has become available online, and I think that has kind of led to some kind of devaluation in people's minds, because they think that they don't have to go and see it in the flesh because they've seen it online already. Do you think that NFT could accelerate that kind of devaluation of art?
No, there's always going to be people that want to own art, see art, look at art. NFT is a relatively new thing. You might say it's a flash in the pan, you might say it's a fad, you might say it's a bubble. And if you think about just we're in the European context, the canon of Western art, from Roman culture, Greek culture, museums, statues, paintings, tapestries, ceramic pieces. Our culture, our civilization is wrapped up in museums, large cultural institutions. Millions of people work within that industry. Millions and millions of people go and see these things every year. Millions and millions of people collect art, tangible art, things for their homes, things that improve the quality of their lives, things that make them happy. The scale of that market is extraordinary. It's priceless, actually. You probably could monetize it in some way. They say that the international contemporary art market is worth something like $64 billion annually. That's the amount of people that are buying new works of art annually. Then there's the old masters and all that stuff as well. So NFT hasn't even got anywhere near this. And to think that an NFT could unpick all of that, could provide a threat to that, to mean that the next generation of humans sit around looking at screens to try and enjoy culture is utterly ridiculous.
Thank you, Chris, for your time. That was the Bailiwick Podcast. If you enjoyed it, please like and share it. The music intro is I Shift My Weight by Luno. More on the podcast next week.